Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation, along with
CJ Lou from the Fired Up with CJ show.
Woo!
Woohoo!
If you've ever wanted clearer wisdom, guidance, or direction in your life, then do we have the Trust Your Inner Knowingness show for you. Today, we'll talk about cultivating that trust, how to listen, hear, and how to discern. That plus, we'll talk about feeding wolves, standing desks, hang time, moral injury, outrage, and apathy. The power of your environment, doing YouTube lives solo, and what in the world missing flights has to do with anything.
Uh-oh.
So, welcome back to the show, CJ. Are you ready to
I
shine?
am ready to shine. Oh no! Who missed their flights?
Jessica, for the first time in recorded known history of mankind, missed a flight back from Aspen she's back now, thankfully,
Yeah.
2 days ago, Wednesday evening, right before I was supposed to do a YouTube live.
Oh
And
wow.
um, it's completely unheard of, and I haven't gotten the full scoop or skinny on it yet. But I just have to believe that some situations, some things occurred so that she could stay in Aspen another day and feel it out even more and get certain experiences that she needed to get while she was out there.
Right. Wow. Okay, so how was the rest of her trip? Because I know that at first it was a kind of oh gosh, there's so much pressure. And then it was, I'm having fun skiing, having hot cocoa and apple cider. Now, where did it end up?
The verdict of it so far is that it was really a stepping into herself, a
Mhm.
stepping into her power, a stepping into her knowingness. She came back standing like mountain, taller than I've ever seen her stand before.
Mm.
This adventure of putting herself out there, really putting herself out there, because she had to introduce people and talk left, right, and center, and really be an extrovert this whole time, which is not her former baseline, though she would challenge people that you can rewire anything about yourself. And she really had to step forward into her true self. And she came back a changed woman, completely changed
Wow,
in
good.
beautiful ways. So much more powerful, certain of herself, certain of her voice, certain a knowingness about our future, even if we don't have an exact home. And in fact, there's still a little debate between whether it's Aspen or slightly down the road in Carbondale. But the knowingness that she got out of this trip was profound.
Wow. And how would you describe what is it allowing her instincts to lead the way, or what was the knowingness that she got through her experience?
It's not so much the instincts. It may be, and this is me speaking for her with very little time to, so it's not even fair for me to even attempt to speak for her. But there were a lot of circumstances where she had to, well, a lot of times throughout the day where she had to just stop, drop in, go quiet, pause for a few minutes. Maybe she even paused for an hour or two before she would feel, hear, or know what to do is the next step.
Mm,
So checking in, and checking in
mm,
more. And then this sense of by checking in and leading from that open hearted place, what I call that open hearted warrior place, she felt supported, she felt directed, she felt on track, on path. Even if she didn't know what the outcome was going to be, she was stepping exactly where she was supposed to put her next foot.
mm. Nice. Very cool. All right, so then what happened during your YouTube live
Well,
thing?
I got to do, so she stepped forward solo into her power. I got to do my first YouTube live without her running the show behind the scenes. So I got to step forward into my power. And I actually had a really fun YouTube live. I made one small quirky change since the producer wasn't on set,
Right.
which is all of my glasses except for one, and I have several yellow pairs for different focal distances. So, but all of the pairs except for one came back from the manufacturer a few months back without an anti-glare protection on it,
Oh no.
uh, and which obviously is terrible. Well, terrible is a relative term. Is uncomfortable most of the time, but with the lights of cameras and stuff is really not good because you don't see my eyes so well. It bounces back. So the producer, Jessica, was having me wear the one pair of blurry glasses so that you could see my eyes clearly when I was doing the YouTube lives.
Ah,
What I didn't realize and then got an idea before this last time was that my anxiety levels were going up because I couldn't see the possible tiger in front of me. When
ah,
things are slightly blurry,
right,
you are a little bit on edge. There's a primordial sense in you that
right,
something's not quite right and you may not be able to tell what's going on.
right.
On top of that, I had to be able to read the chat box to see the questions. So I voted for my glare glasses, which I don't think turned out that bad from a viewership perspective. And it's on YouTube for people to check out after it's live. It goes on
Yeah.
to our YouTube Inspire Nation page. But having the glasses on that allowed me to see clearly calmed me down, relaxed,
Wow.
and allowed me to go deeper into the show because everything felt so much more relaxed. So I actually enjoyed it, even though it was interesting. Usually it's, do we have this ready? Do we have that ready? Instead, I treated it like a coaching call, which is a few minutes before I get centered, I go into prayer, and then I just dive right in. I didn't take these hours of prep to YouTube. I didn't say, you're going to be speaking with thousands of people in just a few minutes, time to get the butterflies going. Instead, I just stepped up, clicked a few buttons, and just said hi to people.
Yeah, that's
And
great.
it went really, really well. So I will challenge you in the future when you're ready, CJ.
Yeah.
Lives are calling.
Yeah, doing live, you're saying, is my
Yes.
calling.
Well,
Okay.
it is calling you to give it a
Okay.
shot.
Okay. Okay. All right. We'll have to figure out the technical pieces, but I was thinking like, do I feel pulled to do the thing that I talked to Michael about? I'm like, nope. So I haven't done it. But who knows? Maybe it is calling me. It's not calling me yet, but like you said, the whole purpose of the show is getting clear wisdom, guidance, and direction in your life, right? So I don't have that like aching sense like I got to do that yet. But
And
who knows?
for me, it was, and you're so right. For me, it was a. I was thinking about Tony Robbins recently and how he started his career. And he said when he learned he wanted to be a speaker, he wanted to speak everywhere, every chance he could. And so he
Mm,
was giving like two or three talks a day, driving around like a madman, my words, not his, trying to speak anywhere he could for free.
mm-hmm.
Well, when I have an opportunity with my daily wows, when I have an opportunity with the Facebook and YouTube lives, each week is to cultivate my craft, a slightly different craft than what Tony's done. But in that same way, I get to practice, practice, practice.
Mm,
I don't know what the end outcome is. I've already given large public talks before, and I greatly, greatly enjoy that. But I'm cultivating a skill here, and I just have a feeling that's the inner knowingness that this is important. For what exactly, I can't say. Maybe it's a show in the future where I don't have a guest and
right.
I speak directly to people. I
Right.
know that I'm going to be teaching on an even larger scale in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is stepping forward into that. All I know is that each time that I practice this, it is a practice for something greater.
Mm,
And I don't have to, that's again getting back to this knowingness. I don't have to know what the end goal is. All I have to know is what that next step is.
right.
And so I felt really good. In fact, we had our class last night for our automatic writing program, and Jessica wasn't going to be able to make that. And so here's another live event that I'm going to have to do solo.
Mm-hmm.
And she contacts me in between airports and says, do you want us to hold this event? Do you want to still do this or hold this when I'm back? And there is this inner knowingness that is like, dude, let's do this.
Right.
Like, this is important. This is going to be cool. I want to step forward into my power or
Mm-hmm.
into my future by doing this. And,
Mm.
and that's tapping in with that knowingness. So um, I'm loving it. For what? I have no idea.
And you really, Sometimes you won't until very late, much later. Like I didn't know you at the time, but I mentioned it several times during our interviews that there was one point in which I studied to be a yoga teacher, of which I taught a couple of yoga classes, and I thought, excuse me, I don't really want to teach yoga. I mean, I actually like teaching yoga, but I thought you don't get paid enough, and there's a lot of logistics and planning for the amount of money that you're making. So I'd have to do it purely out of just the joy of doing something for free and giving back and such. But I did that, and I also, at the same time, was getting mediation, getting certified to mediate for the King County courts,
Hmm.
and at the same time was becoming the neighborhood president, which included a lot of mediation and such, because it's a very active neighborhood. We work a lot with the city planners and the government. And so I was doing these four things simultaneously, in addition to like my regular coaching practice and having kids and driving in the carpool. And I was like, I have no idea why I'm doing all of these, four things together. Honestly, it seems crazy to me, but I guess I'm just doing it anyways. Or, the time when I actually kept on, I didn't know when I would hit the number of people in coaching that would be too much. There's just always like, well, how much is too much? And then I would get, different comments. And then I was like, I'm just going to not know until I will know when I hit there. And I just kept on saying yes, 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 yes. At one point I had like 60 clients. I can't even remember, but it was like, okay, this is too much. I cannot do the quality job that I would like to do. And I was getting stressed out, and I'd have to hire an admin. And I was like, nope, that's too much. But you kind of don't know until you do it. And sometimes you'll do it and not know why you're doing it. And I can look back and go, okay, the yoga stuff, I definitely learned a lot, not
Hmm.
only in deepening my yoga practice, but in conceptual knowledge about Ayurvedic medicine, about structural things in the body like that. I don't know why I even still know those things, except that for the yoga stuff, for pranayama and breathing, I definitely use that with my coaching practice. The mediation has changed my life, literally, the way that I work with people. And the neighborhood thing just showed me that I'm a leader, even like to lead a neighborhood where you have somewhat of power, no authority really, and people are still following you, not getting paid to do anything. That's actually a true test of your leadership skills. So that is what I learned, that I'm like, oh, I actually am a pretty good leader because I can do stuff and motivate people without them getting paid at all.
And
Um,
taught you you don't want to go into
and
politics.
I didn't want to go into politics, but you just don't know until you do it, and sometimes you won't know till many years later why you did the thing that you did. But it's exciting. So you did the YouTube. You basically have kind of flown on your own without your pilot, right?
Yeah, it's been solo this past week, and it's been, it's interesting. You say you don't know until you try. If I double back around to what we were talking about last week about getting a coach for skating, I still have no idea what that's about or why. Um, I don't have dreams, at least yet, of racing skating. It's far from my mind. But when you feel that connection, you feel that pull, step into it and see what's there.
Yeah, and you never know. Sometimes it's maybe not even for you. I mean, and a lot of times I believe that it is for you. Excuse me. But like yesterday, I felt like, oh, I'm going to just write and journal at Whole Foods and grab a coffee. And then when I left, I talked to this homeless woman, and she shared this whole life story about her life and how she became homeless, which I don't know, if I hadn't been there at that time having coffee, our lives would have intersected. And she she wanted to tell me thank you for something that I did for her around her
Mhm.
birthday, and she'd been waiting for all this time for me to stop to say thank you.
Wow.
So it's almost like I was doing something for her, then that came back for me, but it was mostly like doing something for her, even though like I was just grabbing coffee in the way that I don't normally grab coffee, and it resulted in this thing that was for her, not necessarily a little bit for me, but mostly for her, I think. So maybe it's for your skating coach, like who knows?
It's
Or maybe for a
it's
client.
possible. It's so true that you don't know where those dots are going to connect. So doubling it back around to the question you were asking earlier, what's my week been like while flying solo? Um, Exhausting, holding on for dear life, and in many ways, and beautiful. Life gets messy.
Mm.
Life is meant to be life, and it's what you do with that. And so I've gone into the extra loving, kind, and gentle mode.
Mm.
You may miss a workout here. You may miss a couple workouts over here. You may say you're going for an hour of this and you only do 20 minutes. It's okay. It's okay. Sleep in late. Completely unheard of, Michael. But if you want to do that, you do that. Sleep in late too. Whatever it takes, take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. And I have found it such a special, loving week. Would I have liked to have taken better care of the place so that Jessica came home dirty dish free? I would absolutely love to have. And I thought I was going to make it on Wednesday as I'm doing my frantic clean, get that one burst of energy until I find out she missed the flight.
They're like, oh, good. See you later.
So no, I wanted it, but then I immediately go into what's the next thing I've got to do since I'm on my own. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And the next thing you know, I'm finishing up a live call the next evening, and driving off to the airport at 9 o'clock at night without a breather in between. You just do what you can through this time. And so it was my knowingness during this time was it's all right just as it is, in the imperfection, in the messiness of it, in the even exhaustion of it. It's perfect.
Yeah,
And again, oh, go ahead. No, please.
I have two things that kind of remind me of the thing that you're mentioning. And so I've had, I stated my weight goal of like, I want to have this weight for and hold it within 3 months. And then my body then proceeded to like rebel. You know what I mean? Like I was like, okay, I'm going to really try to get down to this weight. And the weight was completely, the number that I picked was completely arbitrary. And so then I went off my diet, like went way off the rails, like ate unhealthy. It was almost like my body was protesting to actually have more control and manipulation over its normal state of being. And because I'm trying to, I'm I'm operating on the principle and belief that our all of our systems, including how we eat, is instinctual, and we'll know when we're hungry. We'll know when how much to eat and what's appropriate for our weight. It's just that we've overridden that like natural guidance system for so long. And so in spirit of that, I've been trying to learn how to mindfully eat. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being starving, 10 being full, like knowing when ideally you want to get to a 3 or 4, you don't want to get to a 2 or 1 when you eat the next meal. And I literally couldn't figure out what that was because I would get to a 2 or 1 and think it was a 3 or 4 until working with my health coach. And finally I was like, God, I just feel like I'm just failing every single step of the way. Like I'm going off the rails. I can't figure out three or four is really 1 or 2. And she said to me, well, I don't know if you realize this, but you're trying to reprogram something pretty huge. Like you've been eating a particular way for who knows how long. Like when we're little babies, we kind of instinctually know how to eat, and then our parents force us to eat stuff and finish stuff off the plate, and all of those things. And there's money associated with food, right? Like we bought this expensive meal, eat it even if you're not hungry. Like there's all this kind of stuff, and so I was so down on myself, and she's like, the whole kind, gentle, easy, good premise of, you know what? Yes, okay, you screwed up 3, 4, 5, 6 times out of the 6 days or more during that time, and it's okay. Like you're trying to program something that's really new for your body. So for you, right? Like you were trying to do everything, and also, launch a YouTube live show by yourself. Go fly by yourself, and so. Yeah, not everything got done. You didn't get your workout. It's okay. And I think that that was a big aha for me because there's a sense of, yeah, you're going to make mistakes during that time. And that's how you learn and grow, right? That otherwise, right? You learned about your glasses because of
So I
flying
have an
solo.
admission.
Yeah.
So Jessica came home, and I had done a bunch of dishes in the dishwasher.
Hmm.
This is one of those I can't believe I'm sharing this, but I had done a bunch of dishes in the dishwasher. There was some in the sink, but I had soaked them, although I think it was starting to get funky, so that I could put them into the next round of the dishwasher. But Jessica's going, "What's that smell?" And then she opened up the dishwasher, and there was the tablet for the washing machine on top. Apparently, it had never dissolved.
Oh, uh-huh.
And so I'm like, "I'm so sorry. I'll put the tablet back in." And I rewashed the dishes for her. We'll get this taken care of. And then just before the interview, before this, Fridays are a 2 interview day. She's like, "I hate to tell you this, but you actually have to take the tablet out of the wrapper before you put it in." And I thought it was a biodegradable wrapper under hot
Right.
water that dissolved.
Yeah, like that's how ours works. Yeah.
Apparently I had missed a step.
Oh.
And so I was washing and rewashing dishes.
Well, how are you supposed to know? I mean, because I actually
It's
have a
all a
tablet
learning.
that you throw in and it disintegrates. So what, how would you
I
have
missed
known?
a, I think I missed a step. I missed a step in my domestication process.
Well,
And it's
I
not
mean,
that I don't wash dishes. I tend to just, wash them one at a time at the sink, the whole load in the dishwasher
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Apparently I have some work to do.
But still, that you don't know until, and so I think the thing that I learned is one, my predisposition to berate myself when I actually have not eaten well, gotten things done, and my son is back from college right now, and I really want to spend time with him. So there's a lot of things that I'm not doing well, but I'm doing something else well. And sometimes you can't do everything in this like A plus perfection mode, and it's okay.
It's interesting because you used the term that I wanted to throw in quotes a few minutes ago. You said screwed up. You
Yeah,
said, "What if I screwed up three, four, five, even six times in a row?" But maybe that's not a screw up. First off, just like meditation, we learn the most when our mind wanders and we catch it.
right,
That's actually what strengthens us, is bringing us back. So
right.
it's not a screw up there.
Yeah,
But conversely, um, there was a guest we had on recently talking about the different buckets you have in your life. And if we look at in a sense all the buckets you're playing with right now, if you took the extra time to work on one bucket and didn't quote unquote screw that bucket up, you may have actually screwed up another bucket because you get to juggle all of these various pieces.
right.
So for myself, I wouldn't call any of them a screw up either, because yeah, okay, I wasn't able to get to everything like I'd like to, and certainly I would like to have done better. But given the deck of cards I had, I did a great job. And that's what
Right.
your teacher, I think, is telling you, is given the deck that was stacked against you since your childhood,
Right.
you're doing an amazing job with it.
Yeah, it's my nutrition coach, but absolutely, I think it's actually, it's just a good reminder because sometimes we are trying so hard and we don't recognize when we're doing something new and that things don't go perfectly each time. And that's done by design so that you can learn how to get better and better and better. And it's funny because I had an interview with Derek Rydell, which I know you interviewed his
Love them.
book Abundance a long time ago. I finally interviewed him. I've been rescheduling like a dozen times. Finally interviewed him yesterday, all due to my fault, just so clarity, um, to be clear. He had this exercise of like figure out, the vision for your ideal life and lifestyle, and that and I started doing it and I started writing. I took a coffee date and I started writing. And, um, I thought, well, actually, my ideal lifestyle would be life. Goals and vision would be kind of what I was like when I was on my meditation retreat in Hawaii.
Mhm.
And, I've never achieved such high bliss states, happiness, joy, connection, elation. And I thought, well, is that really if life was all about that, then is that really what you would want your life to be? There's a certain part of us that's like, yes, absolutely. But then I thought about it and I thought, well, really, now let's actually evaluate what actually was happening in Hawaii. It was all the things that I mentioned. In addition to that was personal insight, personal struggle, growth, and challenge. And so really it's both of those things, even though we want it to be perfect love, joy, happiness, there's always going to be that other part. And it's really the balance of these two things, I think, that are really important. So when I was writing, and I think even when we do vision boards and we write everything, it's like, there's this whole puppy dogs and unicorn thing. And we don't necessarily we say we want to learn and grow, but not all the stuff that comes with it, right? Forgetting to, putting the wash through the, putting those dishes through 2 washes versus 1, me binge eating, a handful or more of peanuts. Like those are things where like, okay, so.
I like that you're saying to recognize it for what it is, because these challenges are here to serve us. And if we can recognize that in the moment, probably everybody listening to this show right now had a challenge is going on in their life. But if the challenge, if you say instead of it's because I did something wrong, or if I'm off track, I'm off path, or for whatever reason, if you say no, the challenge is actually here for my best interest. Which in some of the challenges I can hear people saying, "Oh, good Lord, it isn't." But almost all of these challenges, all of them, if we look globally, if we look beyond this lifetime, are here to serve us. Mm-hmm. And the vast majority will serve us in this lifetime, not in the actual moment. But a good example is everybody's had a vacation where something's gone just terribly wrong, just off the rails. And that's the vacation that you actually talk about the most and have fun talking about the most for the rest of your lives.
That's so absolutely true. I mean, those are the memories that you really remember. I mean, our trip to Croatia on a steamboat or like on one of these boats, and we were in like one of the rooms that was below the deck, full of diesel fuel pumped into our lungs. I mean, it was just god awful. So we were up all night, and it was awful, but I remember that trip and every single detail of that trip because of that. And I remember, that we were going to, like half of those things I'm like, did we go to Dubrovnik or Split? Like, I don't remember, but that trip I remember. But it's interesting, accepting. I was doing my morning pages just actually before we met, and it was talking about the different minds that we have. I had this dream yesterday that it was a recurring dream that I was trying to enter into my GPS, a certain address, to go to Target, a Target store that was near the company that I was now working for, which is General Electric, which I worked in long, long time ago in Boston. So I'm trying to type in, and I'm like, I know it's on Route 27, and I'm trying to type it in, and I'm at the Target store trying to ask the people where to get to this Target that's on Route 27, and they're like can't tell me, and I'm like typing on the web and I can't seem to find the address, and I can't seem to even type. Do you ever have dreams where you can't type stuff on the phone or you keep on pressing the wrong buttons? So I'm having one of these nightmares. And I said, well, what is this all about in my morning pages? And it said, well, the thing is your unconscious mind has its own GPS. And so your conscious mind is trying to control, manipulate, and force the unconscious mind down a particular path to get someplace. And your unconscious mind has its own path. And then there's your spiritual self that has its own path. And oftentimes these things reconcile, they're divergent, and sometimes they're the same. And I realized that today when I was journaling that, the unconscious path is all about our kind of survival instincts, protection instincts, protective instincts. And that is in some ways like antithetical to our spiritual path, because our spiritual path is about, we're all one. Why do you have to protect yourself from anyone or anything? Because we are one, so that whole like protect yourself. I'm in fear because I may die. It's like, well, your life has no time or dimension. You'll be living forever. So there is no fear. So there's certain times when there's a reconciliation that cannot be done between unconscious mind and spirit. And I hit it, and it's almost like but what I realize is that, that is it. And you have to accept that as is. And there's a tension between these two ways of navigating, and it's just accepting. that there is a tension. There is a tension in life itself, in the way we live it. There is a tension in transition itself, in the way that happens. And so, but it's the thing that you said earlier. It's like kind, gentle, easy, good. Like love it, accept it. Don't fighting against it's not going to help you, right? It's not going to help you at all.
Well, I say insanity is having two taskmasters.
Yeah.
And so if you're being pulled at you in both directions, you have to let go of something
Yeah.
and say, it's imperfect, it's ugly right now. I'll go to the left. And when that doesn't feel good or that's run its course, then I'll go to the right. Rather than trying to fight to hold on to both right and left at the same time and tear yourself apart.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that but the reality is that's going to happen. You know, there's going to be these tensions between wanting to doing it right and making mistakes about spirit versus unconscious or unconscious versus conscious. Like there's always these tensions and there's not even a way to navigate it perfectly aside from trying lots of different things until through an iterative process you figure out what you think is kind of the best path.
Well, I love that you went to morning pages and I go to automatic writing. You went to a process of inquiry to understand it. And that's a big part of this puzzle of discovering your inner knowingness is asking questions. Mm-hmm. Why do I feel this way? Mm-hmm. Why did this dream come up? Why do I feel like I'm being torn in two directions at once or feel like I'm flipped upside down and backwards? So having a process of inquiry, whatever that looks like for you, I think saves you lots of grief and heartache and helps you get to that kind, gentle, easy, good place. So if not, you don't have any idea what's going on.
Right. And what's interesting in this case for this week, for me, sometimes it was inner through doing the morning pages, and sometimes it was outer through, my coach giving me a concept that I hadn't necessarily thought about. So it's always like there's signals and information all around, all the time. If we listen, they're there. But it's just believing that they are there and then, listening and responding.
I love when the synchronicities in life come up. We've been having synchronicity after synchronicity. She had a ton of them come up on the trip. It feels like John Denver is guiding us into Aspen.
I love John
Denver. Really, really
yes.
Cool. And we've been talking about John Denver, and she ended up at a park which has an engraving of John Denver's lyrics. She sends me a picture of John Denver's lyrics. And soon after that, a dear friend of us, completely coincidentally as it goes, sends us a picture of an album. He goes, look what I just found in my storage unit. And it's a John Denver Rocky Mountain High album. It. And then running into close acquaintances or friends of John Denver. And you look at these things and they all mean something. One of the coolest ones I had yesterday, I'm on the way to the airport. I'm listening to an upcoming guest. We just had her on the show earlier today, Tammy Simon, the founder of Sounds True. And she's talking about coming into your authentic self, coming into your true state of being, sort of like Sounds True. And I'm turning into a residential neighborhood rather than going to this traffic light or this blinking light, because this blinking light is just danger. Right. I have not figured out how to navigate that intersection safely. Too many blind turns. And so I'm going through this neighborhood and I say to myself, go slow, Michael. You're in a residential area. Let's go real slow. And Tammy says, as you're discovering your path to your authentic self, you'll want to go slow. And I'm like, whoa. I take my foot further off the gas.
Right, that's funny. I love when stuff like that happens.
It's always there. It's a matter of being more present in the moment, turning down, in this case, I guess turning up the external stimuli. Yeah. Usually I'm listening to nothing, but it's being present with your experience and with being present with what's going on inside of you.
Yeah, like what is life trying to tell you? What is life trying to tell you at this moment? Slow down.
Yes. Think about that inner knowingness. Other than your morning pages or automatic writing, do you go into inquiry throughout the day where you ask yourself questions, not out of a berating, why did I screw it up -ness sort of way, but ask yourself, why am I feeling? What am I sensing? What is the lesson to get out of this experience?
Yeah, I mean, I do that for, so, it could be sometimes in the morning for dreams. It could be, I'd be listening to an MP3, which I like to do a lot. So I listen to MP3s when I'm walking around, and I do a ton of walking. Or sometimes I'm like, God, I wonder why I'm thinking that way. That's not super helpful. Where did that come from? So I'm doing, it's funny. I don't know if you're like this, but as a coach, if you talk about someone having authentic strengths or like a natural way of being, I'm just constantly asking questions, whether it's my clients or myself. It's a sense of curiosity and just a sense of constantly asking questions. So I don't know. How about you? How what where so it so through for me it's I feel like it's almost probably throughout the whole day, but it's oftentimes initiated from listening to an MP3 or thinking about having a bad experience with someone, an interaction, going, what happened to that? Or like just meeting a good experience, like meeting the woman for after coffee and her telling me about her life and thinking, wow, why did I hear that? Like I'm not even sure what's happening half the time. So always thinking like, why did that happen? What's going on? That's so interesting that she stopped me and told me. I mean, I sat there for 15 minutes and she was telling me about her whole life story.
So cool.
Yeah. Um, so how about you? How about is your process of inquiry throughout the whole day or what's it like?
It, it is, but it ebbs and flows. So there are times where I love spending time in nature. Somebody was saying recently I should do shows. It was a dear wizard friend of ours who was saying we should do shows sitting in nature and interviewing people. I thought that is very, very cool. Because in nature, oftentimes my mind goes quiet. Although I've
Mm,
noticed lately with everything going on that there's often more that my mind has to share. And I'm like, is that a chatterbox? Is it ego? No, it's part of the inquiry process right
mm,
now. And so there's an ebb and flow to it. I love to have that conversation. I love to learn about myself and the experiences and connect the dots as long as it's not the same repetitive thought. If
yeah.
I find it, ego's going into a place of fear. Well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And then it's just expanding that fear. That's not the inquiry I want to go into because that just digs yourself into a hole, throw some dirt on top of you. But if it's a process of continuous learning and growth and understanding, what can I learn from this experience? This was really uncomfortable. And what does that mean for me? This decision didn't work out as all how I'd like. All right, what can we learn from that? And
Mm,
so that continuous learning about myself that I find for myself, I can't do if Netflix or a movie is on. I can't even do often when there's music going. I just need quiet.
mm,
And so oftentimes I'll go, music would be great for the mood right now. I'll put on some music and I make it about 10 or 15 seconds. And I go, no, I want to dive into the silence right now.
mm, mm-hmm.
Um, is really helpful, I think, for the learning and growing process of, you know, I've spent many a decade with myself by this point, but I'm just scratching the surface and understanding who am I and why do I make the decisions that I make.
Mm-hmm. The word that kept on, uh, I've heard probably no joke, like probably a dozen times, and what I hear in my head when you've been saying that is unfolding. It's
Yeah.
the unfolding of ourselves, and through that daily experience, like parts of ourselves are being revealed to us, and we can lean into it, or we can just note it, or we can ignore it, right? It's just depending on what we want to do. And actually, all three of those options are fine, honestly, because sometimes you can't, it's like too much. You can't keep on analyzing yourself all the time. But I love that word of unfolding because it's just this constant, like constantly opening and to something. And I love the idea of unfolding because it's like a present, like a package that you're kind of opening up. But that's what I kept on hearing when you're talking about unfolding that's happening through this inquiry over and over and over again.
And the word that comes to mind with your unfolding is revealing.
Yeah.
Our lives are revealing ourselves just as we don't know. We can pretend we know where we're going, but the truth is, on some level, none of us really do.
Mm-hmm.
The show is my calling right now, and I believe it'll be my calling for life. but who knows? The future will, as you say, unfold or reveal itself. My job is to simply step that next foot onto that path. But in that state of inquiry, how does this feel? How does this next step feel? And then the next one, how does this feel? Do I want to look right? Do I want to look left? What's coming up? And just let that, I like to say that we're all given a book of life.
Mm-hmm.
And what we want to do is be present on the page rather than try to rip the page get to the next page too soon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that idea. When I was talking to Derek Rydell, he was telling me about his prayer. I don't know if he's ever shared his prayer, and I'm sure I'm going to botch it up. So sorry, Derek. But he said he was talking about, it's like, I may find my ultimate, something along these lines. May I find my ultimate truth? May I prevent myself from controlling, manipulating, or wanting to have it be a certain way, look a certain way, and just this idea of just allowing things to unfold. But I also think what we do, and I was just listening to this in a different form for some other gentleman on tantric meditation, and he was saying I think in Upanishads they talk about, which is a sacred in Hindu text, is they talk about this whole effort or ease, which we've mentioned, sukha or siddha. Right. And he was saying that there are ways, even in enlightenment, in our own spiritual practice, where we try to force things. So like when we do pranayama, which is a like a strong breath, or we do, there's also stuff where you do pranayama where you're holding a bandhi, where it's just like you're holding really tight and not letting air. And he's like, that's just one way of, it's kind of a forceful way towards enlightenment, and we can just like let go and know that with ease that all this stuff is going to open up if we can just let go. So it's just a different kind of way of navigating life, which fits perfectly with, I think, the thing that we were talking about, right? Whether it's I've got to get all this stuff done before Jessica comes, like I'm going to work around, or me like, oh, I have to, I've got to eat this way or not, there's this kind of like effortly pounding yourself, or this kind of like, oh, I love the kind, gentle, easy, good kind of, oh. And I also could not do any of that and just say I'm learning something and I love myself. It's okay,
Woohoo.
Yeah, exactly.
I love what Derek's saying about recognizing when we're trying to overdrive the ship. Mm-hmm. It's a co-creation with the universe. We get to step forward, but there's a difference between stepping forward and if you hit a door, trying to kick the dang door down when you're not maybe supposed to go that direction.
Right.
And discerning, getting the wisdom to discern that, that's where inquiry comes in. That's where asking yourself, door after door after door keeps closing in front of me. Am I sure this is the direction to go in? God, I would have given anything for automatic writing when I was on my second book tour. And every door is slamming left, right, and center. We talked about it. RV on 2 wheels, broken glass, broken into 2-car accident same day, and so forth and so on. And instead, I felt that I was called to keep stepping forward. I must slay the dragon. But I never stepped back to ask myself, self, are you really sure you're on track and on path right now? Why don't we take a pause, dive into our breath, and ask some big questions before we take a next step? Because each step at the moment seems to hurt. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's a sign. Okay, maybe it's a sign that we're supposed to martyr ourselves and be like Rocky in the ring right now. But maybe not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think we're always taught in this society, it's like when you hit an obstacle, you have to double down, that's the solution. I just keep on hitting it with a hammer until it submits to my will, and then sometimes that could work, right? But then at what cost? When I was reading Derek's book, I would keep on reading something, and then sometimes when you read on your phone, it just jumps around, and then all of a sudden I'd be someplace else in the book. And that happened enough times that I thought, why is this happening? I really was interested in reading what was there, but somehow I've somehow jumped into this, on page 100. Now I'm on, 233. Like, why is this? And then I started reading to page 233. I'm like, no, this is not relevant to me. And then I go back, and I swear that happened like 3 or 4 times. And I was doubling down. I didn't say, maybe what's going to happen, which is what happened, is I'm going to read this whole book and we aren't even going to talk about the book aside from like one 5 minute section. We barely talked about the book.
It's a part that I am still working on, that, and I'm getting better, but I have a hard time letting go. And this is sacrilege for people who know me. I am known for reading all of the books for my interviews. That's part of my game, but we can't define ourselves by our game. We have to let go of that and challenge ourselves to say, does it have to be that way? And time after time, when I get into a book and it's uncomfortable and I don't want to be reading it for some reason, and I go, look, you owe it to everybody. Read the book. You owe it to the guest. Do what you can. Read the book. Read the book. Every single one of those times where it happens, the interview on question number 1 was in a beautiful, beautiful direction, but had nothing to do with the book.
Yep.
I did have one recently where I was confident it was going to happen, though, and I stepped back in inquiry and said, I don't believe we're going to scratch the surface on even a fractional amount of this material, which means you don't need to read this. And I stepped back and said, no, on this one, I want to read this.
Right.
If for nothing else than for my soul, I want to put it in. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, we didn't talk about almost any of that, but it was important for me. Mm-hmm. And I think it will be important for my future. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. I think it's the thing that you mentioned is when that happens, tuning in, going like, what do I feel? What do I want? What do I want to have happen? And for me, there was a part of me that said, just have this be over, because I don't, the interview is an hour from now. So get it done, get it done. If you don't have to do it, then don't do it. And then part of me was interested in the content itself. So it was this kind of like struggle between what I wanted and then what I wanted, right? 2 things that I wanted. One is to like move forward and be done, like have a chance to take a shower and like, talk to Derek before, which I didn't get to do. Like I wasn't able to take a shower, and it's like, well, life happens that way. But yeah, sometimes you have 2 wants, and sometimes it's not clear. And then even when you got your automatic writing or response that said, yeah, you're not even going to touch this, and you still thought, well, I want to do it anyways. And so, I mean, that's a beautiful thing about free will, is that we always can choose between these 2 things, and both of them are right? Both of them are fine, and doing none of those 2 things would be fine too. Or a combination of those 2. It's like whatever happens is supposed to happen. Don't worry about it.
That's the ultimate challenge in life, in every area that we can bring to it, non-judgment. It doesn't mean that we can't choose chocolate over vanilla or something of the sort, but it's to suspend judgment that there's such a thing as quote right or quote wrong, or that this, if I do this, this is good. If I do that, this is bad. And that it's all okay at the end of the day. And that doesn't mean we go, crashing our cars into each other or anything like that, but it's all okay. That gets back, I guess, to the kind, gentle, easy, good. And so learn about yourself and be okay with whatever you choose and whatever you do.
I think I had 4 interviews this week, and
Wow.
And it was a lot. And then you can't, and I have a son that's here, and I wanted to like spend time with him, and I just thought I can't do it all, so I'm gonna devote as much as I can, and that will be what will be. And they all turned out fine, but it's hard. It's the trusting part that it's all going to turn out fine, and judging yourself if you don't read the book, or judging yourself, like, because one of them is Joan Halifax, which is a pretty big person, in the spiritual world, and I really wanted to do well, and actually, the beginning of the interview went awfully because I rushed back from yoga because the yoga teacher ended the class late and I didn't time it. I'd cut things too short. And so all the preparation in the world didn't make sense if I wasn't emotionally present, you know. So it took me a while, like probably 10 minutes into the show when I finally calmed down. But again, this is all about what getting clearer wisdom, guidance, or direction in your life, and how
Mhm.
sometimes it's like this, right? And when it's like that,
Crisscross.
just choose because, you know, just choose and it's going to be fine.
Well, I have taken a quote from either Eisenhower or Roosevelt and kind of butchered it and made it my own over the years, which is something to the effect of a good decision is a great decision, a bad decision is a good decision, and the only real wrong decision is not to make any decision at all.
Right. Well, I think
Step forward.
The Taoists would would disagree with you, but they would believe a non-decision is a decision and a totally worthy decision. So I think all four of those are possible.
How many decisions can you make out of one decision? I love it. And even that is perfect just as it is. Woo-hoo!
All right, what did you do with feeding wolves? That sounds so cool. And how are and I've been noticing, so for folks out there, people don't realize that Michael is on a standing desk. And what I'm noticing when I'm watching you is there's a lot more organic movement, which is nice. I like looking at it because it feels like if you look at me, I'm like pretty much in a like, you know, because my butt is in a chair, a part of me isn't moving. So there's this kind of like stiff, I think. And I like what the standing chair table is doing when I'm looking at you on camera.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
good.
this is a new experiment, and this is the first time that I'm trying a standing desk. I've used it for coaching now,
Yeah.
and I'm getting used to it. I'm at probably about 3 hours a day on the standing desk now, and yeah, there's more movement. In fact, I'm deliberately, mindfully watching my movement because I have this desire to kind of move in
The
kind of this
circular.
motion here. It reminds me of um, going to temple as a young adult and going on Friday night to Shabbat services. And we would do this silent prayer called the Amida. It was your time to communicate directly with God.
Mm,
And I would find myself moving in this circular motion, which to me always felt like a vortex going
mm.
upwards. And I would watch in some of the, not the temple that I would go to, some of the Hasids, kind of the mystical side of Judaism, would always be praying in this kind of circular motion.
Um,
And so that's my temptation while I'm doing this is to go into that circular motion, which just feels very organic. But I don't want to, either make people seasick, or I
right.
don't know where the limit is between a little movement is good. And I wouldn't look like a caged squirrel, but I don't want to distract
Do you
people.
know what
So
I think it is? I think
I'll
it's
learn
like
that.
so the kind of the whirling around. I think if the arms were moving, then it kind of because what happens is like naturally your arms would you know you would move, but for because I feel like I've been trained to keep my arms down, you know, because I'm not, you know, I sometimes and I'm actually don't I move my arms a lot in real life, but when I'm sitting, I don't move my arms around, you know. But if I'm talking, I'm like, ah, you know, there's all this stuff that's happening. So that's part of it is I think like when you're used to doing video, you are used to like keeping your arms down.
Well, it's something I've been training myself on. I'm glad you brought that up. I feel like I need to stand back now for people. And I
Yeah,
wonder
just
what
move your
happens if
hands
I,
around, move your
well,
arms around. People
it's
comment on the
important.
YouTube, tell us.
If we talk about like Amy Cuddy and body language,
Yes,
there,
that's
that's actually
great.
probably better.
That's
The
much
more that
better.
we have our hands, so this is a good learning for me. I wonder if I can turn and angle it down just a little bit more. The more that we speak with our hands, the more comfortable and trust people have in
Yes.
us. And so I've been working at sitting of going a little bit further back and a little bit further back. So I'm not that stiff, rigid, where you just see my shoulders
Yeah,
and go,
that's like what I am. It looks like I don't have any arms, right?
and so I think there's something. This looking at my hands right now like this, I feel more like Tony Robbins. If you
Yeah.
watch Tony speak, he's got personal power, and that is he has these, for lack of another term, and I'm secure in my masculinity, gorgeous, huge hands,
Right.
and he speaks with his hands, and there's such a power in it. And so
Yeah.
I'm looking at on camera here at my hands, and but yeah, I guess I'm going to learn to stand back more, and
Yes.
maybe I will really enjoy this
Well, because I've
standing
just feel there's
modality
so
for
much
interview.
more flow and movement, and then I think two talking heads. There's an energy flow that's happening with this. Maybe I'll move my desk to a standing desk too, and we can both stand and like move
Woo!
around and circle and
So
things.
I've got to keep my keyboard. How far can I get from the camera while still having access to my keyboard? Although in this case, when I speak with you, there aren't really any notes. I just jot down things when they
Right.
pop up to me.
Right.
So we're running very short on time. There's a lot we haven't covered with you. Let
Right.
me throw out a few subjects quickly and see if you want to cover them now, if they fit, or if you want to save it for next time. We have hang time, moral injury, moral outrage, moral apathy, and all sorts of things morality.
Okay. Let's talk about the moral thing later because it relates to finding your voice. And so as you and Jessica delve more into that, and I do too. We can kind of share our notes for next week. How about that? And then for you, we didn't cover feeding wolves.
So feeding wolves is Jessica had a dream, I believe, while she was in. I'm always talking about Jessica's stuff secondhand, which isn't fair, but she had a dream that had a wolf in it, I believe, while she was in Aspen. And I was doing automatic writing on things this morning, and I was getting it's the ancient story. Ancient. It's a Native American story, and I can't say whether it was the Sioux. Is my guess. The story of a little boy who comes to his grandfather, and I won't even attempt to butcher the story. The punchline to the story is whichever wolf you feed
Mm,
is the wolf that survives.
right.
And on a day by day basis, our choices, consciously and unconsciously, are made by whatever wolf we feed in our heads. So if we feed the wolf of fear, we end up becoming a more fearful person. If we feed the wolf of love, we become a kinder, more loving, gentler, more compassionate person. So when you go into this process of self inquiry and you're asking yourself questions, watch what pipeline you go down, because even the process of inquiry can be feeding of the wolves. Why am I such an idiot? Why did I do that? Why did I do the other thing? Is probably not the wolf you want to feed in self inquiry. There's
Right.
nothing wrong with purging, with getting up all of the black that has to come up. I recommend writing it all out on a journal page, shredding it, and be done with it.
Right.
But you can constantly look at this is a mindfulness practice when you're talking with yourself. And I always recommend, because you're stuck with yourself for your whole lifetime and then some,
Mm-hmm.
doing it as kind, gentle, easy, good as you can,
Mm-hmm.
and continuously asking yourself when you're talking to yourself, which wolf am I feeding?
Mm-hmm. Love it. And I think it's going back to the thing that we were talking about. It's the clearer wisdom, guidance, and direction is also about like there is a direct there is part of that is this inquiry process, and I think you're kind of like making further refinements. So even with the inquiry process, there's kind of a kind inquiry and mean spirited inquiry. So it's not
Heart and ego, we could say. And
right.
ego's trying to protect us. It really is doing the best it can, but it's also often trying to protect us with a pitchfork.
Right. Right. And it is about, like I said, this is an example of this, right? Where when you have two pieces of guidance, your head is saying something and your heart is saying something, and it's about, I'm not even sure. Sometimes you just go for one or the other, and then sometimes it's about going for neither or finding some compromise between the two. I don't know, but I think that it seems like we've kind of covered the whole terrain today in some bizarre way in which we always cover
I
the
like
whole
how that
terrain.
navigation comes all around and just in time so I can go coach my next coaching
Yes.
client as well.
Yes. Okay. So, what any final words before we wrap it up?
I want to say love yourself, and love yourself. And to truly loves yourself means to start to get to know yourself. Imagine you're meeting yourself for the first time, like you're on a first date. What makes you tick? What makes you excited? What makes you scared? What do you want to do more than anything else in the world? What do you hate to do? And start diving into the questions of your life, large and small, and start to, maybe for the first time in your life, really get to know on a deepest soul level and every level in between who you are. If you do that, life gets richer, the experiences get richer. Sure, you're going to still have just as many downs, but there's going to be this richness to this life and this sense, this greater sense that you're on path, on purpose, and on track.
Woo!
Woohoo! That's all I've got, CJ. And for you?
I'm good.
All right. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler and
CJ Lou from the Fired Up with CJ show.
Saying, be well. I feel so exposed here in front of the camera. This is the learning. Be well. Have fun. Dive in on the inside and begin to inquire all about the greatest person in the world. That's you. And shine bright.
Woohoo!
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show. I would love your support in any way by giving me comments below, or to subscribe to the show, or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.